All right, Connell, thanks so much. Citigroup Chairman Richard Parsons met with presidential senior advisor Valerie Jarrett last night. A White House spokesperson telling Fox Business that this was just a meeting of two friends. Here's a look at the bid-ask right now for Citi as talks between the government and Citigroup are continuing as the Fed's considered about taking as much as a 40% stake in the company. That news has helped Citi stock jump nearly 10% yesterday to over $2 a share. As you can see, it's up just slightly in pre-market trading right now. On the phone, joining us from Mumbai, India, with more is Ramesh Menon, a former managing director and head of U.S. structured products at Citigroup. Good morning, Ramesh. Thanks for being here once again.
Thank you, Alexis.
All right, so the concerns are continuing to brew now that, in fact, the government will take some kind of large stake. Walk me through here the conversation about converting preferred shares into common equity and why it is that the government believes that's so essential at this time.
Well, one, Alexis, it isn't essential. It's merely convenient, and it's particularly convenient to Citigroup management. What is actually happening is merely the use of this technique in order to meet an accounting requirement. Essentially, the government already has a significant stake in Citi via these preferred shares. What Citi would like the government to do is to push that equity holding further down into the capital structure in the form of common equity, so that that new common equity can be used in the calculation of the tangible equity base of the company. All this means that when this particular accounting ratio is computed, Citigroup's position looks better, but it really doesn't change Citigroup's ability to absorb further losses in any way at all. It's accounting, and it serves the purpose. It's helpful to shareholders at the margin because there are fewer senior liability holders ahead of them in the capital structure, but it really is smoke and mirrors. And unfortunately, the focus seems to be on these sorts of tactics instead of looking at the writing on the wall and doing something decisive and strategic. That, in my opinion, is what the market is waiting for.
Well, see, it's interesting, Ramesh. Call me a conspiracy theorist, call it a hypothesis, whatever you will. Frankly, I sit here knowing what's been going on behind the scenes, and I'm telling myself, wait a second. They know what this stress test is going to look like. I understand the Geithner's not going to reveal the details till tomorrow, but we have been basing performance in these financial institutions on their Tier 1 capital ratio. And what the government is now saying in this stress test is, we're not going to look at arcane, these are complicated accounting measures here, but we're not going to look at what we've been telling you is the measurement that we're going to justify banks, which is Tier 1 capital ratios. We're now going to look to tangible common equity. And so basically the government is saying, if Citigroup were tested right now, they'd fail the stress test tomorrow, and therefore we're going to make sure that they, of all people, don't fail the stress test before we even start it.
Well, Alexis, having been involved with a fairly complicated business and understanding how risk management at these institutions ought to work, the stress test, quite frankly, the results of which can probably be estimated or ballparked in a matter of minutes on the back of an envelope with some fairly simple assumptions if one had the data. So one clearly knows, if one were within the organization or in the government, what the results are going to look like, and they're moving stuff around on the balance sheet in order to technically comply with some new arbitrary requirements that they might set. But once again, it is the equivalent and as irresponsible as shuffling chairs on the deck of a sinking ship. They're not dealing with reality, and, the market is smarter than that. The market understands what's actually required.
Ramesh, I thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think that's precisely part of the issue here. And I look forward to speaking with you hopefully later on in the show. Ramesh Menon, thanks so much.
Anytime. Thank you.